You have to use all carpet, otherwise, because you have to shoot.
Before the grand entrance, Matthew Doyle is always in the shots. For 4 years, trying to get Keir Starmer the best possible image. After he sacked him last year, Keir Starmer compensated Matthew Doyle with the peerage, even though it was public knowledge he had given support to an old friend, Sean Morton, even after that friend had been charged with sex offences. Today, that saga helped to fuel a loud welcome for the Prime Minister at question time from the opposition benches.
Prime Minister. I just said I didn't know the Prime Minister was that popular on this side.
When the Liberal Democrat leader linked the failure to vet Peter Mandelson and Matthew Doyle properly, it triggered a flash of temper from the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to appoint one paedophile supporter cannot be excused as misfortune. To appoint two shows a catastrophic lack of judgment. The Right Honourable Gentleman once told this House that when a Prime Minister refuses to take responsibility, and I quote, "It only serves to convince people that things cannot get better." Does he still agree with himself? And does he share my fear that that is exactly what is happening now?
Minister.
People in this country, millions of people, have been let down for years and years and years. And one of the reasons was austerity, which his party supported. He should take accountability and take responsibility for what he has inflicted on this country.
The Prime Minister repeatedly tried to deflect attacks on him by jumping to criticisms of other parties. He looked rattled by yet another scandal and accusations of government incompetence.
I think I touched a raw nerve.
2 months ago, Number 10 was warned of Matthew Doyle's association with Sean Morton after he was charged with paedophile offences. A few days later, the peerage for Matthew Doyle was formally announced. Keir Starmer today suggested that was because the man who led his communications team for 4 years hadn't told the whole truth.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions.
But a full account of Matthew Doyle campaigning for Sean Morton after he was charged was on the front page of the Sunday Times just after Christmas. The government went ahead and confirmed him as a peer anyway a few days later.
I, Matthew, Lord Doyle.
He was sworn in over a fortnight after the Sunday Times story appeared.
The Prime Minister pretends not to know about Matthew Doyle. It was on the front page of the Sunday Times. He cannot explain why he gave this man a peerage, and I think they should be wondering why they're still cheering for him after that. And now he is mired in yet another scandal. Does he ever look in the mirror and ask himself, is the real problem staring him in the face?
Mr. Speaker, I delivered a landslide victory for our government. Only 4 people have ever led the Labour Party to victory in a general election. I am one of them.
Constitutional experts say Number 10 could have withdrawn Matthew Doyle's peerage at any point in the 2 weeks after the Sunday Times article and before the peerage was formally conferred. Number 10 appear not to have grasped that. In Edinburgh, the man who tried to depose Keir Starmer on Monday insisted he acted alone.
This was my decision and my decision alone. I was not part of any wider attempt or any wider organisation. I took the decision based upon what I am willing to tolerate.
The departure of Chris Wormald, the Cabinet Secretary, barely a year in office, is expected imminently. His allies say he feels let down by Number 10, which puts him in a club with growing membership. Well, there's a bit of bafflement around Westminster. The government's lines saying that there was no time to cancel Matthew Doyle's peerage, if that's what they'd wanted to do, because there was no established precedent. Talk to constitutional experts, that's not the sense you get. There is a moment when you become a peer, the sealing of letters patent, to give you the jargon, and it would have been perfectly possible, constitutional experts are saying, to have acted before that moment, and there were days there. There were weeks before the whip was finally withdrawn from Matthew Doyle in the House of Lords. So generally just puzzlement about that, and also a certain sort of spectacle today, you have the Prime Minister effectively saying in the House of Commons that the person who's been his spokesman for years is not utterly truthful. You have the Prime Minister pretty much losing his cool in the House of Commons as well. There's a fine line between passion, which a lot of people have wanted to see from the Prime Minister for quite a long time in his own party, and anger. And I think the consensus will be, and you can probably see it in that clip yourself, that what we got was pretty much the latter. And you have the Cabinet Secretary, as we were saying, imminently departing. You just get this sense of an operation in Number 10 that is seriously creaking.
Thank you, Gary. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, and I began by asking her what this government's new message to voters is.
I think we were elected 18 months ago on a promise of change, and I think people really want to feel that change in their lives. And I think that the events of the last week, and particularly the horrors laid bare in the Epstein file, have really focused minds on two things. The first is that we need to be far bigger and far more ambitious about the scale and the level of change that we create out in the country. If the Epstein files show anything, they show that there is a network of powerful and wealthy men who run systems in their own interest, who look after themselves and each other, and who screw everybody else. And women and girls were the biggest victims of that in the disgusting revelations that have come out through Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. But if you talk to anybody in any part of the country, what you also hear is that the systems that we have are run by those people in their own interests, and they're rigged against them.
On that note, we hear that Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, has called for the police to investigate Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. You support that?
Well, look, I do really support that. I support the fact that we need to leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of justice. And as the Prime Minister said, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, like anybody else, has an obligation to go and share all of the information that he knows and be completely forthcoming about his own involvement in this. The victims and survivors are owed nothing less. Gordon Brown also said today that he wants to see far more work on making sure that Britain does not play a role in that global trafficking network, and I really strongly support that.
Yeah, but the Prime Minister's got his own questions to answer, hasn't it, when it comes to people's links with paedophiles. He only removed the Labour whip from Matthew Doyle, his former comms chief, yesterday. Why didn't he do it as soon as he found out that he had campaigned for a paedophile?
The Prime Minister was very clear at Prime Minister's questions today that he did not have the full information when he put Matthew Doyle forward for a peerage. My understanding is...
Please stop there, because this is really important that we get the timeline right.
I was going to come on to that.
There was an investigation because it was on the front page of the Sunday Times on December the 28th.
Yeah,
so why didn't the Prime Minister do anything between finding out that this guy had campaigned for a paedophile and yesterday?
Yeah, if you forgive me, Kieran, that is exactly what I was trying to address. The full information was not put forward by Matthew Doyle when he was asked about any links or associations with the individual in question. The Prime Minister put him forward for a peerage on that basis. The story then appeared in the Sunday Times, and there was no precedent or protocol to remove the peerage at that point. Now, you've asked me why the Labour whip wasn't suspended more quickly. I genuinely don't know the answer to that, and that is one of the things that we're currently trying to get to the bottom of.
When did the Prime Minister find out that his former Chief of Comms, who he nominated for a peerage, had campaigned with a paedophile? When did he find out?
So I don't know the answer to that question. I genuinely don't.
But you acknowledge that the Prime Minister knew at some point prior to yesterday that this guy had campaigned for a paedophile and yet did nothing about it. Why didn't he block that peerage when he had the chance? Because he had the chance up until January 8th when that peerage was confirmed, and he knew way before that, didn't he?
Look, I haven't acknowledged that because I wasn't involved in the process. I don't know what was put to the Prime Minister and why a decision wasn't taken more quickly to suspend the whip. I do know that the Prime Minister then asked for this to be looked at again and took the decision to suspend the whip, and there is now an inquiry underway.
But there was an investigation that fed information to the Prime Minister. Shouldn't that information at least be made public in full transparency so we can all see what the Prime Minister knew while he looked like he sat on his hands?
He's very keen to get that information into the public domain as soon as possible without prejudicing any police investigation. And so he's following the advice of the police, but we're working at pace to do that.
Finally and briefly, are there people within the Cabinet plotting to remove the Prime Minister?
I think you're referring to the Health Secretary who said today that he's not, and I think we should take him at his word for that. Well, I mean, I very much hope not, and he's been very clear that he isn't, because we owe a better duty to the country than that. We had absolute chaos in this country with factionalism and infighting and frequent changes of Prime Minister under the last Tory government. And it would be a disgrace for anybody in the Labour Party to be trying to do that to the country again. And what I can tell you is that, you know, on Monday, when
how would you put on that word disgrace? Is that what Anna Sarwar did? Is that what Anna Sarwar did this week then? Was that a disgrace?
Look, I think Anna Sarwar can answer for himself, but I will make no secret to your viewers that I think he was profoundly wrong to call on the Prime Minister to resign. Right. I think we now need to pull together and get on with living up to the promises that we made to the electorate 18 months ago.
Lisa, Nandy, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Well, as Gary reported earlier, another high-profile departure from Number 10 in the wake of the Mandelson scandal is due to be Britain's top civil servant, the Cabinet Secretary Chris Wormald, who Keir Starmer only appointed just over a year ago. It's been widely briefed that the PM intends to replace him with Antonia Romeo without an open process because she was approved as suitable last time the top job in the civil service came up. But Dame Antonia has been at times a controversial figure. She was investigated by the Foreign Office when she was the Consul General in New York in 2017 over allegations of bullying, harassment, discrimination and misusing expenses. At the time, the Cabinet Office, but not the Foreign Office, said she had been cleared. Earlier, I was joined by Lord MacDonald, who was the Permanent Secretary in charge of the Foreign Office at the time, and I began by asking him what he makes of the PM replacing his Cabinet Secretary, Chris Wormald.
I think it's extraordinary. This Prime Minister chose this Cabinet Secretary exactly 14 months ago. It's usual for Cabinet Secretaries to serve several Prime Ministers and about a decade, so this is an extraordinary development.
Do you think it's part of trying to blame the civil service for the Mandelson affair?
I don't know. I am convinced this is unusual. I don't think it will be a very successful deflection exercise if that is the motivation. It feels more likely that the relationship between the Prime Minister and his choice has broken down.
And what should happen now? Because it appears the press have all been briefed that he's already decided who he wants, and it's Antonia Romeo, and there's not going to be a process, there aren't going to be interviews.
What should happen next is very clear. There should be a full process. This is the most important job in the civil service. It can't be chosen on the fly. It can't be chosen using a process that is more than 1 year old. If the Prime Minister wants a new Cabinet Secretary, he needs to start from scratch.
And how much do they need to probe who these candidates are, given the mistakes of not looking too far into people's backgrounds before?
Due diligence is vitally important. The Prime Minister has recent bitter experience of doing the due diligence too late. It would be an unnecessary tragedy to repeat that mistake.
I mean, they are saying that she's already been approved as suitable for this job, so why do any more process?
I repeat, the due diligence needs to be thorough. If the candidate mentioned in the media is the one, in my view, the due diligence has some way still to go.
Well, I mean, that takes me to the fact that she was investigated when she was working for the Foreign Office, when you were running the Foreign Office. Are you saying they need to go back to that process?
Yes. I would prefer to go into detail with the team in Number 10 rather than your viewership,
But yes, I am available to talk about that and would like to do that. Sometimes appealing through the media is more effective than doing it direct, which I've tried to do, but they know how to get hold of me.
Are you saying you've tried to warn them?
I'm saying I've tried. I've been in touch today and not had a response.
What do you make of the way that this government is making its appointments then overall?
I think that the issue of the Prime Minister's judgment is the focus like never before. This appointment is vital to him and the country. It is vital he gets it right, and it's vital, in my view, that he follows proper process.
Some of the political types have been effectively blaming the civil service for the vetting process, which was clearly not good enough with Mandelson. Do you think that's fair?
No.
Can you elaborate?
I don't feel like elaborating. I think that the civil service did its job. In the case of Lord Mandelson, it was a political decision that drove the decision-making.
Thank you very much indeed.